there's some controversy around a particular glyph in the Great Pyramid. There's one glyph in there that's in the very top of the relieving chambers. We can't get into those. It's very difficult to get up there, but there is a glyph up there that supposedly says Khufu. There's a lot of speculation that was carved by Howard Weiss. It's a long story, but it's very suspect. And I can talk about that for an hour, but put it this way, there's no glyphs in the Great Pyramid, and nor in the other pyramids for that matter, the megalithic ones, that suggest that they're a tomb, that kings' names aren't on them. We know what Old Kingdom tombs look like. There are Old Kingdom tombs at the Giza Plateau, covered in glyphs, covered in edifices and things like that. There's no evidence that they're tombs. It's so strange that that's the prevailing theory when there's just no evidence for it. No bodies, no nothing. And there's almost, in fact, once you get into it too, there's very, very little evidence, scant evidence that even connects these rulers to these pyramids, like Khufu. There's almost no evidence that even though we say that's Khufu's pyramid, other than this very extremely questionable glyph that's in the relieving chamber, there's like a 3-inch statue of him that they found down in the Valley Temple, nowhere near the Great Pyramid, and that's it. Like there's really no evidence that connects them to it. It's just he's said to, like, it's just during their civilization they sort of associated him with it, and we just take their word for it. Like and the funny thing is we've got tons of evidence, and we showed it on the trip, that Egyptian rulers have a strong tendency, particularly in later periods, that the 19th dynasty, Ramses II, right? How many times did we talk about Ramses II and his son Merenptah? The very strong tendency to claim objects and artifacts for themselves and write their names on them. Like Ramses was notorious for this. He would take something that's far more ancient and carve his name into it, and then therefore later on in history he gets attributed as being the guy who had it made, because that's how Egyptology works. They read what's written on it. If there's writing on an object, they go, okay, well, clearly this object was made by that guy, and maybe the whole site was made by that guy in that period, because we know about when that guy lived. And it's just, there's so many examples of where this stuff's been inherited and rewritten on. There's objects with 3 or 4 pharaohs' names on them. And the same thing could have happened in the Old Kingdom. In fact, there is strong evidence for renovation and inheritance in the Old Kingdom as well. I have some videos on the topic. But, these pharaohs may have even claimed these pyramids for themselves, because there's really bugger all evidence that suggests they had it built. And they certainly don't look like tombs. There's endless contradictions to the tomb theory, but that's what Google will tell you. It's a tomb.
It's funny. I live in a little island off of San Diego, and there's a historic hotel on the beach. It's from the 1800s, and the Hilton runs it now.
Right.
And I'm like laughing to myself, because it's almost like 500 years from now, if it's post next cataclysm, somebody comes to the Coronado Island and they see this structure that's ancient, and they're like, oh wow, this is a Hilton hotel from 2023 or some shit. And right. It's even older than that, and I think that in many cases is how things have been dated. It's like, let's scratch the surface, or look at one point that could be maybe something that is more recent.
Yep.
I've been laughing to myself, because as that's probably how it's going to shake out.
Probably. Yeah, same thing. It's equivalent to, like you say, post cataclysm, they go to they find a skyscraper and there's some graffiti written on it. It says, little Timmy was here. And like, man, this little Timmy was some dude. He
right.
He had this thing built. Amazing. It's literally, that is the process that happens on some of these sites. And you see it. The Serapeum's probably the best example, with the giant big precision granite box that's got like literally chicken scratch writing all over it.
Oh,
you can see someone's just attacked this thing with a chisel very poorly. No straight lines. They couldn't even mark the surface in places, but it's the most valuable box because it's got the most writing on it, and it tells us the story of who built this place. It's like, no.
Yeah, you can see your reflection in the quality of this.
Oh.
It's a 100 ton?
100 ton, more or less. Yeah, I mean, about 70,
box.
80 tons the box, and 30 tons for the
and like perfect 90-degree angles on the inside and outside. And then, like you said, it's like chicken scratch glyphs. It looks like, honestly, like something I could do. Like if they were like, hey, copy this, I'd be like, okay, I'll do my best.
You can literally see the marks from where someone's attacked it with a chisel. And the box itself has perfect straight lines, and there's not a single straight line in the writing. It's waving all over the place. The granite's been polished to a mirror finish, which is not a natural property of granite. You have to work really hard to do that. Yeah, there's a huge technological mismatch across Egypt. It's one of the other signs of inheritance and reuse. There's a massive difference between the quality of the writing, even the good writing, and the objects themselves. Like even the good writing became a high art form too. Like it's not all chicken scratch like the Serapeum box. There's also excellent writing, but you look closely at it, it's still done with hand tools. You can achieve it with hand tools. And like I said, later in that civilization, they did have iron and steel. So you're much more effective about carving granite, but it doesn't display the same characteristics, things like the machining marks and the precision that you see on some of the artifacts. It's why I actually think, and Yusuf thinks this as well, is that the writing is all done by the dynastic civilization. I think they, like obelisks and things like that, I think they added writing to them. Statues, they added the writing. And we showed there's a lot of examples of where it's obvious that the writing came later. Like it's in some places, like on the big statues, you have glyphs that are carved over features that were pre-existing on the statue. So It's like the belt line and the dagger and the kilt. Yeah. You can literally see the marks where they've carved over the top of that stuff. Now, if you were making that statue from scratch and designing it with the intent of having that writing as a part of it, you wouldn't go to the effort of carving granite and carving these features into granite only to have them basically written over the top of. You would incorporate that glyph somewhere else in another way, in a feature that was a bit more holistic. I mean, you just wouldn't do it that way. And there's almost an endless series of examples just like that. Yet that writing and that glyph is exactly how that object gets dated and related into the story of history. It's funny. The whole thing is, a lot of these assumptions that we make about these artifacts, you dig into the details and you can really challenge them. Yeah. I think.
Thank you so much for listening.
If you enjoyed that, check out right over here for the full episode.
Oh, and you're going to want to subscribe.
Bye.